Today's message I've called Living in the Light of Eternity. In the last verse of chapter 3, Paul urged the Thessalonians to live in holiness while they waited for the return of Jesus. And in chapter 4, he addresses these two issues. Firstly, how to live. And he said, avoid sexual immorality. Sexual immorality hurts you. 1 Corinthians 6:18 says, flee from sexual immorality. All other sins a man commits are outside his body, but he who sins sexually sins against his own body. And the other thing is, it hurts others. 4 verse 6 says, you wrong your brother and take advantage of him. The culture they lived in, the Greek culture of the day, was full of sexual perversions, and they had temple prostitution, and so Paul is saying don't get involved in all that. Satan's attack on the family is very strong, and this is one of the ways that he uses to attack husbands and wives and families. The second thing he says is love one another. We are to have the mind of Christ. Philippians 2:3 says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit, but in humility consider others better than yourselves. Put others first. The Thessalonians were actually doing very well on this, and Paul said, keep it up. And then the third thing he said was, earn your keep. He's not talking about those who cannot work, but those who will not work. Maybe some of them had given up thinking, oh, well, Jesus is coming back, I just sit down and wait. And he's not concerned so much with what job you do, but God wants to know that you do the job that you have well. It's not what you achieve, it's the character that others will respect the way you handle your work. So then he goes on to talk about the second coming. The Thessalonians were very good at having faith, at showing love to one another, but they were very weak on their hope for the future. They weren't sure what was happening, and it was defeating them in some ways. They were afraid that those who'd already died, maybe from the persecution, would miss out on the second coming. So Paul reassures them. He says, Jesus died and rose again, and those who have died believing in him, they will rise again and go to be with him. But not only that, they'll get there first. Verse 16 gives the sequence of Jesus coming. Firstly, it'll be noisy. There'll be trumpets, the voice of angels, the thunderous command of God, of Jesus. It'll be in the heavens. When Jesus ascended, the angels came and said, see how he's going? You will see him come back in the clouds in the same way. But he won't come back as a baby. He'll come back in majesty. And he'll come to collect his own to be with him forever. So Paul tells them this to encourage them, to give them a grip, something they can hold on to while they're going through these difficult times. Now, I had a real problem with this. I thought, there's some very strong teaching to these Thessalonians to wait on the second coming of Jesus because it's coming soon. 2,000 years later, here we are waiting on the second coming of Jesus because he's coming very soon. And why is that? Why did they think it was going to happen when 2,000 years later it hasn't happened? And I really believe the answer is that we are meant to live in the light of eternity. We are not to settle down, be comfortable on this earth, and think that this is all there is. But we are meant to keep our eyes fixed firmly on Jesus and his return and his taking us to our real life, which is in heaven. And whether he comes back for his whole church or he comes back to each one of us individually when our time comes, he is coming back and he is taking us home to our real place. So Paul told this to the Thessalonians so that they would know that there was more than this dark world they were living in, and that there was incredible hope for the future, the hope of eternity. And as you're going through difficult times at this time, keep your eyes on Jesus and on eternity in the same way. And I leave you with this verse from 2 Corinthians 4:17 and 18. For our light and momentary troubles, achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, and what is unseen is eternal. Bye.